Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the New Author Podcast. In this episode, Rich and I are going to break down our 2024 goals. We're going to talk about which ones were failures and which ones were successes, and we're going to give a whole bunch of excuses on why the ones failed, and hopefully entertain you guys for a few minutes here as we go through this. Rich, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay, but I think it was pretty funny by when he's opened up and tried to say hello. It was like a frog was in your throat. Kind of gives everybody an idea of just how healthy both of us have been over the last couple of weeks,
I think
which is
I
not
was
healthy,
sick when we met last, which was like about
right?
10 days ago.
Right?
And it's been a wild ride of me, pretending it's not COVID and just calling it like a head cold or whatever. Which I feel like that could be what it is. It was really just mostly exhaustion and stuffy head and sore throat. Everything's gone except for I still have a little sore throat right here that has been
Uh-huh.
there for like 4 or 5 days. I can't get rid of it. Everything else is gone. It's just that little
Wow.
sore throat. And if I
Yeah.
take some aspirin, I'm okay for 10, 12 hours, and then it starts to
Yeah.
hurt again. So I don't know what's
No,
going on.
that's strange. That's strange. Yeah. It's this is not a popular opinion, but I could do without holidays because there's always a big push and stress and stuff leading up into the holidays. And then if you have to travel, it's more stress. And I always end up getting sick on the holidays. If we just didn't have holidays, I think we'd be better off.
The
So,
funny thing is, where I got sick, I'm pretty sure it was the concert I went to, the Little River Band, and the
oh, no
restaurant I
doubt.
went to before, because
Right.
I felt it a couple days later, and it's been
Yep.
there. We're almost 2 weeks in now of
Yep.
me feeling this little sore throat. So hopefully it goes away
Yep.
soon.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully it will. Well, that was
Yeah.
interesting. You put you reached across and covered your mic and it scratched, which was interesting, but also your voice got really echoey and strange, as if you were trying to mask your real sound.
Oh,
So
I like that.
just
So
just in
yeah,
case you need to ever do that when you're making a prank phone call or something.
I like that idea actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is your refrigerator running? I'm gonna start saying that more. Yeah, I got Santa Claus brought me a wireless mic for Christmas, and I've used it a couple times to make my football game videos on my YouTube channel, and it only one time did the actual mic go out because I didn't charge him up ahead of time when I first
Uh-huh.
got him, and I didn't even know it. But now I can see the little yellow light, a little blue light over here, and if that starts blinking, I know that there's a problem. So we should be okay going forward, hopefully.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
all right, let's get into our goals here. Why don't you go ahead and start with your 2024? We'll start with your writing goals first.
Right. Yeah. So my year in review for 2024, writing goals. If you want to sum it up, it's like a big fat fail for the most part, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was about a month and a half, 2 months in, I just completely pivoted on my life and what I was doing. That pretty much threw everything under the bus that I had planned to do, which I wasn't. Even though I planned it, I probably wasn't going to get it anyways because that's just kind of the way I ride. But the word of the year that I was supposed to have was finish, and I pretty much did not do that with anything. So as an overriding guiding principle, like these words of the year are supposed to be, it just completely failed. And I'm kind of debating right now about whether to come up with another word of the year for 2025. We're going to be recording tomorrow for our 2025 goals, and I don't know if I'll come up with go in between now and then or not. I might just jettison that whole idea. That was kind of something I just kind of latched onto the last couple of years, and I'm not sure it's ever really worked because I'm just not focused enough.
Yeah.
But I did finish two of the Vella stories I had started in 2023, which was one of my goals. Unfortunately, that was all for naught as Amazon pulled the plug on the Vella serial platform a couple of months ago, and it's going to completely disappear here in February. There won't be anything there. You won't even be able to find the stories I do have there. Um, and it's okay because those two stories, they're going to eventually find their way into a more normal publication channel, probably as novellas. Possibly, if I get crazy with the editing, maybe I'll bulk them up to be novel size. But it's going to take a lot of editing to get them there because, as we've talked about a couple of times during the year, writing serials is much different than writing serial episodes. It's much different than writing chapters in a novel or in a normal story. They're shorter. They're structured a little differently, and so it's going to take some work to get them into shape. That will probably be one of the things I'll think about doing in 2025 just to get them done and out of the way. That is just really one of the downsides of writing serials. And I know a lot of people are moving towards writing serials, and the serial sites where you can post these things are popping up all over the place. Of course, the biggest problem is that nobody's really figured out how to monetize these yet. The Vella Amazon was allowing authors to monetize, but only because Amazon itself was kicking in money to split up in terms of bonuses. And where that money was coming from, whether it was actually coming from subscriptions or Amazon was subsidizing it. Of course, nobody will ever know because Amazon will never tell anybody. But my guess is, since they shut the whole platform down, is that they were not even close to making any kind of money on that. So they just decided, what's the point of doing it? And the other big goal I had, or the other thing I mentioned in my 2024 goals, was that I had a secret writing project that I was going to get started on. This was kind of done on a dare by a friend of mine, not named Jerry Evanoff, another writer friend. And I kind of hinted at it the last few weeks, this secret writing project, when I talked about a recent story that I had finished. And I don't know if you noticed or if anybody listening noticed, but I never really talked about what that story was. And I'm now starting to edit it, and I think I can reveal now that I wrote a contemporary romance story. So something a little bit different for me, something probably maybe a little bit out of my lane. We'll end up finding out in the end. It's a contemporary romance, but it's at the moment, as I'm going into editing it, or I'm editing it, it's a little low on the heat or the spicy scale, but it's extremely high on the drama scale. It's also a little bit different in that it's skewed older in terms of the characters. A lot of the romances you see are like 30 somethings and under. This one's in the, well, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but it's actually an age gap romance. So but I didn't even want to touch the older man, younger woman thing with a 10-foot pole, just because of how that's received sometimes. So I flipped the script and made an older woman, younger man, which for some odd reason seems to be a lot more palatable to people. But so I'm going to be working at that this coming year, seeing if I can get that out at some point. It was surprisingly easy for me to write, and I wrote it fairly fast. I think over the course, if I remember, about 6 weeks total, 6 or 7 weeks at the most. It does kind of make me wonder if I should try writing in this genre for a while, because it was so easy to write and so fast for me. Because I do have a number of other ideas. Again, most of them are older men, younger women, and that's just because of the environment in which I worked in for 30 years. I saw a lot of that on the college campuses. So I don't know if I want to wander into that age gap, or if I want to stick with the older woman, younger man. We'll just have to see how things pan out.
How's the library? Is it any different from where you
from in the library?
Is the age gap the other way by any chance?
Well, the library, I could do something in the library. It would be a little bit different. Actually, probably would be. That's a more natural place where it's good. Well, I shouldn't say more natural place. It's going to be a place where it'd be more likely you would see either older woman, younger man, or some kind of a same-sex couple thing, because libraries are dominated by women. Yep. And most of the women that are working in libraries, actually ours are. We have a fairly young library staff. I can only think of 4 people on the staff, total staff of about maybe 20 that are my age, or even younger than me, like over 40. A lot of them are younger. But I have actually thought about that. A library would be a great place to set a nerdy romance novel. So yeah,
I like the term nerdy romance.
Yeah. Well, nerdy and dirty, depending on what you want to do. I mean, there's a whole naughty librarian trope.
A subgenre, nerdy and dirty.
That's right. Hey, I could do that. But there's that whole subtrope, that whole trope of the naughty librarian that works sometimes. So we'll see what happens.
I've never looked at that on the internet. Friends have said
yeah, of course not. And I'm pretty sure that's why you don't go across the street, because you don't want to see all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Pen name?
I don't have. I came up with. We talked about this maybe in 2023. I came up with a pen name for romance. If I ever decided to write it, it was Kacy Flame. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I even bought the domain for a year. I let it expire here a while ago. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I'd release it under Rich Kacy, or if I try to do a pen name. I'm leaning very much towards doing a pen name, just because there's a lot of men do write romance.
Yep.
Most of them do not out themselves obviously as men. I mean, within the writing community, yeah, everybody knows who the men are that are writing romance. But to the romance buying public, there tends to be a little bit of a stigma against,
Yeah.
men writing romance. So I'll probably go with the pen name. I just haven't come up with a good one yet. Back a year ago or 2 years ago when I was coming up with Kacy Flame, the GPTs weren't, or the chats weren't as good as they are now. So I may ask them for, a bunch of romance pen names for a man that doesn't reveal that he's a man. See what happens.
Yeah, be good.
See if anything comes up. As far beyond that, I don't think I had very many clear writing goals. I wanted to do a lot of writing, I know, but of course none of that ever happened.
Yeah.
Did I even say here? I thought I had written it down here, but I guess I didn't. The whole reason why I didn't do all that much writing is because I pivoted in February of 2024 and started looking for a job, and ended up getting the library job and started in May. So most of this year I've been working a full-time job, and with strange hours that I've had a hard time getting used to. I'm kind of used to the 8 to 4, 8 to 5 kind of thing, and it's not that much different. It's 9 to 5, 9 to 6, but it's further away than I've ever been from a job. So I have to drive. I kill at least an hour, maybe a little bit more than an hour each day driving, and then also the schedule's not consistent. So it's not like you're just working Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. It bounces all over the place, and that's been a little bit difficult to get used to. I do feel like I'm kind of getting used to it now. I'm kind of getting more like this romance novel. I wrote the bulk of it in my downtime at work. So I think going into 2025, I'm in a lot better positioned to take advantage of the free time that the library does offer you to do other things, as long as you're there on call for when they need you.
Yeah.
Now we do have
a couple months of the year you were really ramping up the writing.
Yeah, because it got real slow, except for finals of the colleges around here and for finals of the high schools. It got really slow, and I don't know if it'll be slow again going into the new year. I did manage. I was off last week for the holidays, which did me a lot of good since I was sick the whole time. But I did manage to go in yesterday to work, and it was really busy. I was surprised on Monday before New Year's that there'd be that many people there, but it was quite busy. And also, we're getting a new branch manager coming in, and she is trying to work her way out of the job she's got right now at another branch into ours. So she's kind of been hit or miss when she shows up, because they've got to get somebody up to run the other branch. But when she gets there, she's got ideas, and she's kind of a go-getter. And I think she may be putting some of us to work to kind of push things forward, whatever that means in a library setting, from the kind of status quo where this branch has been for the last 5-10 years. So she's young. She's like in her early 30s, and it's very surprising for somebody that young to be a branch manager. And so I think they're kind of priming her to move up in administration. Next step up would be to move over to the big main branch and be in administration.
And
but
her first move is to hire a 19-year-old man just out of college or just
exactly,
out of high school.
Exactly.
6 months later, there's rumors about a romance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like this. Oh, because we can even get in another trope, because she's a local girl from rural local, and she has chickens. She has a dozen chickens.
Okay.
She got like a little hobby. Yeah, she's got a little hobby farm. So there could be like a bounce back between the two tropes. Yeah, maybe it's not so much somebody she hires for the library. Maybe it has something to do with a farmhand. Okay. We could do something like that. Yeah.
We've all seen Princess Bride. The Princess
Bride.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
So that was basically my writing. I tried to sneak in some poetry during the year. I dabbled with a few short stories. I feel pretty good about. I wrote a lot with pen on paper. In fact, I got some money from my in-laws for Christmas, and the first thing I did is run out and buy a bunch of new notepads and new inks, and actually one new pen too. So I'm going to continue with the pen and ink thing because I do enjoy it. It makes everything slower. It draws everything out, but and it's completely not useful for editing, of course.
Yeah.
But for first drafts, it's kind of interesting to do that. It slows you down. If you can get your brain to slow down, that's the key there, because a lot of times my brain will just keep up. It's like a snowball going downhill as I'm writing. I keep going faster and faster and faster, and pretty soon I'm writing, but I go back to it and I can't even read it. I have no
Yeah.
idea what I wrote because it's such a scribbled mess.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, anyways, those were my writing goals that I had for 2024. The fact that I did not really meet any of the goals per se, but I did do writing, so I guess you can
Yeah.
count that as a win. I
I'm
didn't.
about to
I
do
didn't.
that. So yeah.
I didn't avoid it altogether.
Yeah. All right. For me, I really only had one writing goal, but I'm going to talk a lot here. I had one writing goal, which was it didn't matter what the books were. It didn't matter what the genre was. It doesn't matter. It didn't matter what I was writing. I had a word count goal of 240,000. I started doing that on March 1st because I had to finish. I think I finished editing book two with like the second or third revision by March 1st, and I started writing the first draft of book three, and that's when I started counting my words. And the word it was 240,000 was the number I was shooting for that last 10 months. I was on pace for about 3 or 4 months because I had plotted really well with some of the books I was working on. And then as it got later into the year, I had less and less items plotted, and it really slowed me down. And I ended up failing to hit 240,000, but I did hit 206,108. So I crossed over 200,000, missed it by about 33,000, which is fine because of what I actually did accomplish was way more than I thought I would. If you had asked me this time last year for the year, and I'll get into that in a second. But so I did call it a failure, but it's believe me, I am really happy about what I've accomplished so far in 2024. It's put me on the path to get to where I want to be, which is to have a nice long series out there for sale. I see all these authors that have that, and the marketing options they have, and the way you can make box sets, and you can track read through, and all the stuff that you can do is something that I haven't been able to do yet since I've been writing since 2017. I have not been able to do something like that. So putting myself on this path, I think, is what's going to get me there, and it's going to get me there pretty quick. I'm hoping by the end of 2025, I'm kind of on that path. So again, it's a fail, but I'm extremely happy with the number. So
What's really interesting, and this is probably the exception that proves the rule, is we have this one older woman who comes into the library who is a whale reader. I mean, she comes in sometimes more than once a week and always walks out with 5 or 6 books and reads them. Like must be reading a book a day pretty easily. And I was chatting with her yesterday about her reading habits and stuff and the kind of stuff she likes, and she despises series. She
oh
will
really?
not read a series. But I'm sure she's the exception that proves the rule.
How can you read
She's
that many books though? Because I feel like most books are series. Like
she well, actually, from the work I've done in the library so this past year, doing getting books, looking up books and stuff for people, and that the vast majority of writers that are out there and the books that are in libraries are at best maybe a duology or trilogies. There are very few long series.
right.
That is something that must exist more in the ebook world than in the print world, and that kind of makes sense when you think about the way traditional publishers work.
Yeah.
That if you don't, if your books or your series don't take off, you don't get the chance to continue to do it. They will drop you in a hot minute. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. If you're mainly a physical book reader and you're not so much into spending the money to buy them, and you're doing libraries, it's easy to get into the habit of saying of telling yourself that there are so many good authors out there, and there are. It's
Yeah.
uh, tens of thousands, way more than you could read, even if you read one book from each person in your lifetime. It's really easy to get into the habit, especially if your reading tastes are very broad, and you'll read just about anything.
Yeah.
It's easy to just jump around and sample what's out there.
Yeah. But
It's
man, I
kind of
feel like
like
if you
dating
find
dating when you're in your teens and
yeah,
20s.
right. I feel like if you like something though, you'd want to read more of that.
Well, you know what she said is that the few times when she's tried to read series, because the first book was so good, she's been almost universally disappointed by the following books.
Right. That
And that
actually makes
again
sense
makes
to
sense.
me because
Yeah,
the first book is always the one I think that the author has in their head the longest. They're probably
right.
the most excited about. That's why they write it first. It's like it's
Right.
when when Lindsay was writing, she had trouble with her second book, and it's why she eventually stopped because she had the first book in her head for years and years and years.
Right.
And now it was like, okay, now I have to come up with a new idea. That's probably not as easy as you would originally think. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple other things on here in terms of my writing goals that aren't actually goals, but they were just things that got me to that 240,000 word, or at least I was trying to get to it. Number one was 0 publishing goals. I did not want to think about publishing at all. All I want to do was write, and success, I published nothing. So I guess that's a plus right there. 0 editing goals. Again, I did not want to do any editing. Even the novella that I want to get out there ASAP, I wrote the first draft and stopped. I didn't go back and edit it. I will do that soon. But and again, success, there was no editing, so I did well there. Established writing times. This is something I talk about on the podcast almost every year. And this was just me needing to come up with a writing schedule, because with a writing schedule, this is where I really do well. If I know, okay, next week, this is when I'm writing and I'm ready for it, then I will write almost every time. And if I don't, there are times where maybe I'll go write tomorrow. Nah, I won't worry about it. So like that writing schedule is huge for me. And it actually took off when I started going back into the office 3 days a week in June, because I knew that my schedule would become pretty much every week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Monday, Tuesday, Thursday in the office, right at lunch. On the weekends, I would do Saturday and Sunday, and I knew it would be the afternoon if I was golfing in the morning, or it'd be the morning if I wasn't golfing. And I would always shoot for 1,500 words during that one. At lunch, my lunch breaks at work, I'd shoot for 1,000 words. And then in August, I started doing half a day Fridays almost every week, which was great. It gave me another day of 1,500 words. And knowing that I had that pretty much every week starting back in May, made it really, really easy for me to get to the word count that I got to. If I was a pantser, I think I could have gotten more words. I just have to plot, and I'll spoil a piece of our January 10th podcast and tell you that I had plotted a chapter this morning. I didn't want to go write this morning. I just didn't feel like it, but I got up and forced myself to go to Chick-fil-A. I had a really well plotted chapter, and in about an hour and a half, I wrote 2,300 words. And that's the kind of thing that I can do if I'm really plotted. So later in the year, I wasn't plotted as well as I could have been, and it really slowed me down. That's actually what cost me getting to 240s. I just wasn't plotted as well as I should have been. So, but the writing schedule is good. I'm going to go into next year with the same writing schedule, and I'm going to try not to take any vacation days the first half of the year. And then starting in July or August, I'm going to start taking half a days on Fridays again, and just try to do that throughout the rest of the year. I'm sorry, this cough is driving me crazy. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. The Excel writing schedule, how am I going to keep track of this? I set up my Excel spreadsheet last year, and it turned into my personal calendar. I've got about 15, 20 columns that keep track of all the words, the word count, the words per hours, everything I do. But I also have the date and what day of the week it is, and I would write into the notes section if it was a holiday, or if, is the electrician coming this day? And that became what I would look at, most mornings when I would get to work, or I would working from home, or in the morning, whatever. I would open up and look just to see what was going on for the next couple of days. And I've already created next year, so I'm ready to continue with that. That went really well for me. I also in here, I need to outline really well. This was kind of a success and a fail. The first half of the year, I was outlined really well. Second half of the year, not so much. And then in terms of what are those words going to turn into? I really didn't have any special plans. I just wanted them to be books, first drafts of books. Mm-hmm. And this is where it kind of turned into the series. And I ended up writing the first draft of book 2, 3, 4, 5, and most of 7, along with the prequel novella that takes place 10 years before book 1. All I really have left is to finish 7, which I'm about 70% of the way through, finish 7, and then write 6, 8, and 9. And I will have the series all in first draft. And I'm really excited to get to that point. But it worked out. Again, it was books 2, 3, 4, 5, and most of 7, and a prequel novella. So I wrote, 4.5 novels and 1 novella during those 208,000 words. It's all first draft. Don't get me wrong; it all needs editing. Mm-hmm. But having that story down is a big deal.
Well, that's not too shabby. When I was watching an interview with Stephen King, and his rule of thumb is that he's doing really well if he can write a novel in 3 months. So that's you're a little bit faster than that pace even. So
Yeah,
that's
although
pretty
his
good.
is probably doesn't need a whole lot of edits like mine's going to.
Well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure they do. I mean,
Oh,
and I'm sure they go through. Sends them off to the editor, and he never has to edit them himself. He's going to send it off. Um,
all right. So all I
so
heard there was I'm better than Stephen King. All right.
that's right.
I wonder. I'm trying to figure out. Oh man, I hate trying to find something on my phone, but yet everything wants to come up and block what the heck I'm doing here.
That's always
I
the way
wonder if
it
I
is.
have this image. I'm going to try to show it to the camera. Come on, come on. It's at the very bottom because I took this picture a long time ago. I don't think I have it. Oh, it was so when I did a big push on my first book when it first came out, including a whole bunch of like of those services that you can advertise with them for a day or two, and they'll promote your book on their page and in their emails and pretty much everything but BookBub is what it was. And at one point, I had like the 25th ranked book in science fiction, and Stephen King had like the 26th ranked book. I was
I
like number
remember that.
one. Yeah, I was so
I
excited.
remember that.
So yeah, I was trying to show that. I couldn't. I thought I had it on my phone, but anyway. And the last thing on here is when will I edit and publish? And this was more just me talking about my goal when I did this last year. The answer looks like it's going to be late 2025, but we'll see. I'm seriously not in a hurry. I'm not rushing. I'm going to write 6, 8, and 9, and when they're done, they're done. I'll go back to 2, and then I'll worry about the publishing once I get to that point. So overall, I think I had a pretty successful year, even though I published nothing, edited nothing. But I wrote. Oh, this cough's driving me crazy. I wrote like what was it, 4.5 novels and 4.5 novels and a novella. The first draft. So I have these. I'm rambling now, but I have these. First draft is the thing I hate most. I don't know. How do you feel? What's your favorite part?
Um, Probably my favorite part is I don't have that strong.
Yeah.
I lean a little bit towards editing, but I do like first drafting as well.
Yeah.
Especially if I can give myself the freedom to just write and not worry about where the story's going.
First draft is what I hate the most because
Okay.
that is getting the story from start to finish, getting most of it to make sense. My favorite piece is actually the first revision, which is where you go in and you start seeding things in and editing it, connecting it all together. That's what I love. So getting these first draft done is like this weight off my shoulders, and now I have a story. Now I just have to go back and edit the story. And once I get 6, 8, and 9 done, I will be very, very happy to go back now and start working on book 2. And it's a completed work. I just need to edit it. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Right. So you're looking forward to, after the early, first part of this next year, you're looking forward to a couple solid years of revisions.
Yes,
so,
absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still not sure how I'm going to release them yet. I mean, I would love to have all 9 done and release them, over some period of time, but I'm probably going to end up releasing them as they're finished. But we'll see. I don't know yet. We'll see.
It'll be so hard to keep those on the shelf.
I'm sitting there editing book 8, and book 2 is just sitting there waiting to get released. I don't think I'd be able to do that. So yeah, you're right.
Right. Okay, well, moving on to the publishing or the business side goals that I had for the year. I had a lot of goals for 2024. Unfortunately, all of them were predicated on Kindle Vella, and so none of that really panned out. There were some monetary goals. There were some actual sales number goals that I had. All of that was kind of abandoned a little bit in February. I did continue pushing with that until late spring when I actually got the job at the library. By that time, though, by the time I actually walked into the library for training, I felt like Amazon Vella was going to be going away myself. It took Amazon another few months to come around and actually say that, but you could just look at what they were doing and the kinds of things and what people were saying in back channels that made you feel like, yeah, they're going to dump this project at some point, just like they did Kindle Worlds after so many people invested in writing in that, and they dumped it. But being, the person who always sees the glass half full, which drives my wife nuts because she often sees it as half empty always. From one perspective, this is not a major failure. It's actually a major success because I did exceed the financial goals I had for the year. It just wasn't really in writing per se. It was in kind of a publishing adjacent job, if you want to call the library that kind of thing. Activity. And actually, I'm learning a whole lot at the library about authors, writing, the kinds of writing styles people have. It's nice. It's one thing to walk into a bookstore and be able to just kind of browse the shelves, pick up, read a few paragraphs, put it back. It's easier to do that when you're in the building all day long, and you have a lot of time where you can wander around and just peek into books and see, oh, this is this famous author Sarah Maas. I've heard a lot about her. Let's see what her writing style is. Oh, it stinks. I can't possibly write like this. It's like, everything is described down to the last button on the person's dress or whatever. Yeah. But so no success there, but I'm not really feeling like I want to call it a failure. So that the other thing I was going to do during the year is to think about branding, whether the brand on myself, whether the brand on a series, or what I was going to brand on, because I got away from that business side so fast, that branding just completely fell through. And I don't know if it's going to happen for 2025 either. I'm going to have to think about that. Ditto around the idea of building a community. That's just didn't happen in 2024, probably won't happen in 2025 either. So both of those were a punt. And I've just got no room in my life for it right now, and don't know if I will going forward. I also said, I think I actually made a comment early in the year, or when we did the 2024 goals, that I was going to move all my Vella IP out of the Amazon ecosystem. Even back then, I was thinking about getting out of there, not for lack of interest necessarily, but I just had no time to do it. And it just sat there, and it still sat there, and it's still sitting there, and will eventually go away in February. I, of course, have copies of everything, so I'm not going to lose the stories, but that online presence will just disappear. And I'll have to try to remember to take the links off my website when that happens.
Yeah, I think your whole thing was get them up there, get the chapters up there, and then once it was done,
right,
leave it up there for a little while, but then get it as
right.
its own book in the actual Kindle store, or just on Amazon itself. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I didn't have very many business goals. Some of them were very specific, but none of them panned out. So that's the way it goes.
Yeah, I had some what I called non-writing but still author-related goal, and these are where all the fails are going to come from. The first one is my story Bible for the Sam Norris series. This is a fail, although I did start it. This is a lot of work. Holy cow. And when I want to spend all of my time writing, I'm not going to make time to do this. I did pay my niece some money to do book one for me, which I am working through actually now, kind of, which I'll talk about here in a little while. But actually, I'll talk about it in tomorrow's podcast more than anything. But right now, I do not have any kind of a story Bible. I do have plans though, and I've already put those plans into motion. Again, I'll talk about that tomorrow. So that was just a big fail. Let's see. Push the New Author Podcast Patreon more. That was a giant fail. Other than just mentioning at the end of the podcast each week that we would do, I never did anything with it. I think we have to put something up there that actually attracts people to it in order to get people to come to it. And until we do that, it's just going to sit there like it is, which is fine. If it's just, do we want to take the time? Right now, no, we don't. We have other stuff that we're working on. At some point, we may want to, and otherwise, it might just sit there. It's not hurting us anyway. So we'll have to figure that out down the road. Continue my author Facebook posting and be more consistent. I did get consistent at some point, which was 0. Consistently not doing anything every day. That really just turned into work. That's all it turned into. It turned into a job. And anytime anything in this writing career, and I put career in parentheses or in quotes right now, anytime anything in this career feels like work, I'm not doing it. That's not what I'm here for. I'm not writing because I want a second job. I'm not even writing because I want to make $1 million and quit my day job. I'm writing because I like to write, and then whatever comes out of it comes out of it. So I just bailed on the Facebook page. I still have it. Every now and then I feel an urge to go back to it and just post something because I think it's funny, but I don't want to go back to it, post something, and then be gone for another 3 months. So at some point I may get back to it, especially when the books are ready to start coming out. I might be that person that just posts when there's a book to sell. Because I know there's enough people on there who are related to me or friends with me or related to or friends with my sister or whatever that would buy it. But I think what I would probably try to do there is release the book and then 2 weeks later on the Facebook page post about it, just in case there's a whole also bots thing there that I wouldn't want to screw up. So, so right now, nothing with the Facebook page. I haven't even gone to. I don't go to Facebook very often. It's kind of a terrible, terrible place. And
oh, you think that's terrible? Yeah, try Twitter sometime.
I am. See, that's the thing about Twitter that I think I don't know. I use Twitter. I must use Twitter in a different way from everybody else because I love Twitter. I only see what I want to see, which is fantasy football, a couple of writers, and a couple of friends, and that's it. Because you can go in and mute words. I've muted every word that the news likes to say.
Mm.
So I don't see anything. And the minute I see something, I mute it or kill that person. I don't care.
Right.
Hide that. I don't
Right.
care what else their important stuff is. I hide them.
Right.
So I love Twitter. I think I use it the right way to where I don't. I've heard you use the term doom scrolling before. I
Yeah.
can't do that on my Twitter because I only see the things that make me happy. So
Right. Right.
so I do love me some Twitter. Facebook, if you can control what you see on Facebook, it would be probably a better place. But like, it's really hard to like stop a lot of the stuff that I don't want to see. And I'm a bury my head in the sand type of guy. I don't want to watch the news. I don't want
Right.
to see that. I don't want to read about the most recent school shooting. It happened. It sucks. I'm not going to let it bring my day down. That kind of thing.
Right.
So
Right.
so that's my issue with Facebook. But
Well, one of the big reasons why I moved from Twitter over to Blue Sky is the fact on Twitter you have to make the effort to block all that stuff. On Blue Sky, if you joined the Blue Sky and you did absolutely nothing, you would never see anything because there's no algorithms pushing anything.
Yeah.
The only way you see things is if you friend people and or start, they call it following. You start following people, then you start seeing stuff from them and possibly stuff that they repost from other people, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
are there ads on Blue Sky like there are on
no.
Twitter? Okay,
No,
so
see, and that's the big thing about the future of Blue Sky. They have
Yeah.
not tried to monetize anything yet, so it'll
They
be
will.
interesting to see what happens.
They'll
Oh
figure
yeah,
it out.
sure, they have
Yeah.
to. They have
Yeah.
to at some point. They're just trying to figure out exactly what the community that is now there, which is much different than what was on Twitter, even in the older days. What the community is willing to tolerate. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
The next one on my list is bring 100 subscribers to our YouTube channel for this podcast. That was a major fail, but we have gained subscribers. I think I have in here 19, but I put that in there a long time ago. We're actually we're into the 20s now, and we actually get more views right now than we were 6 months ago. We get a pretty consistent number of views compared to what we used to get. So we're building there. But with YouTube, it's really maybe it's probably like this with everything, but with YouTube, it's really really hard to start. Or it's really really hard to build an audience when you don't have an audience. Something has to happen to get you that audience, and then it's easy after that. But and again, I have done zero marketing. I don't know what to do. I haven't even looked up, hey, how do I get this YouTube? I just haven't taken the time because again, this podcast to me, I don't know how you feel about this podcast, Rich, but this podcast to me is just a way for me to talk about writing, and I'm happy that I get to talk to you because I used to talk to myself. And so I love the fact that we can just come on here once a week and talk. And if people want to listen, cool. And if they don't, that's fine with me too. But I just like to. It feels like it's almost like I'm going to you're like my shrink. I'm going to a shrink every week and getting all that stuff out that I need to get out, and then I can sleep the next 7 days. So
I mean it's a little too highfalutin to say it's a mastermind, but it's more like an accountability channel more than anything else. That because you feel bad having to come on here and saying, I did absolutely nothing last week, which I've done quite a few times during the year, and it doesn't make you feel good. So you want to go ahead and do something just to say you've done it. So,
And then the last one is the biggest one, the one that makes me laugh the most about failing is get through the first year of the Story Grid Guild successfully. I failed miserably at this. That thing was expensive. That thing was like $1,400. I made it through May, and golf started in the summer, and that was when I was doing that, and I just stopped. And what's weird is I have mixed feelings toward it. I really like Story Grid. I like what they do. I love their YouTube channel. I like all their content. The book is, I don't know if you see my fancy new bookshelf.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Yeah, it's got my books are up here looking all nice and everything. But I have a Story Grid thing down here somewhere. I don't know where. Oh, it's right here. I have a Story Grid thing where you can't see it. It's down there. Like, I like everything they do, but the first 6 months of that, or the first 5 months, I really felt like they were teaching me stuff that made no sense to me in terms of writing. And really all I was doing was learning like this. I'm not going to use the word fake, but I'm going to use the word fake because I don't know what to say. It's like this fake vocabulary they came up with for their curriculum that eventually would tie in and make sense. I just had to make it that far, and I didn't make it that far.
Right.
The other critique I would have is that when I watched Tim Grawl's State of the Story Grid last year in November when I decided to sign up, one of the things he talked about was how they felt like they didn't have any kind of what's it called when you work with someone, what's the term I'm looking for? I have it in here somewhere.
What are you talking
Uh,
about? They have no
uh,
feedback?
yeah, like an interaction feedback
Right.
type of thing. Well, I joined it thinking, okay, I'm going to get feedback. I didn't get feedback. I would basically do the assignment each week, and you wouldn't turn it into anybody, and you wouldn't talk about it. Now, I wasn't making the effort to go into the message boards, but in the message boards, I'm just talking to other people like me. Who knows if they had it right or wrong?
Right.
So
Right.
there wasn't the kind of feedback from the actual story grid people that I expected, which kind of bothered me just a little bit. And I saw Tim do a video. I didn't watch it this time, but I saw another video where he talked about more interaction. And I was like, well, that's what you said last year. So that kind of bugged me just a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wasn't putting forth that effort to get into the community like I wanted to, just because it was low on my things to do when it came to
Right.
what am I going to do today? Work came ahead of it, golf came ahead of it, writing came ahead of it, and it just went down the list.
That's one of the hardest things in the realm of online learning is that asynchronous interaction, trying to figure out how to crack that nut and get people to feel like they're actually having some interaction with the instructors in the course. That's true across all across the spectrum in terms of colleges using online courses, high schools during COVID and everything. That was a big. Nobody's ever really cracked that on how do we actually get people to interact with each other when you're not in physical proximity, because it's easy when you're in physical proximity, or it's easy when you have a live channel like we have right now and during the recording of this podcast. But when it's asynchronous and it's mostly writing related or text related, it just doesn't really happen. So.
Yeah, and I think the one way that it would happen for them is if they have their next level up, which is just thousands and thousands of dollars, where you literally get one-on-one feedback with the instructor every week, like you literally like we're doing right now. You get into
Right.
a room like that. Well, I'm not paying for that, and maybe it's the greatest thing in the world. It would make me the best writer ever, but I'm not taking my time to do that.
Right.
I always look at people like Lindsay Baroker. She's always the one I go to. Lindsay Baroker, who probably never took a class in her life. She probably doesn't plot as much as I do. She doesn't care about writing software as much as I do. And she just turns out really, really good books. And I would love to get to that point. And I don't know if a classroom learning like this was so in depth. This was down to you're learning terms that you'd go, how does this have anything to do with writing? And
Right.
maybe down the road, it did. I just didn't get that far to see. So
Right. Right. Yeah, it's more like trying to learn a system than learning something
yeah.
about the writing that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
can be
So
disappointing. Yeah.
and that was it for my non-writing but still author-related goals.
Okay. For me in 2024, I had a number of personal goals. The first one, which was a reading objective, I did not make that. I had hoped to read at least a book a week, but again, with the job and the pivot that I made that kind of impossible. I still did a lot of reading. I think I ended up reading 21 books for the year. My favorites by far for the year were both Peter Swanson's books, A Kind Worth Killing and A Kind Worth Saving. Those were just fantastic books. I've started reading a newer one of his, we solve no that's not that's Richard Osman. There's a newer book he has, but I started it, didn't really get into it. It was a different kind.
That's the one I read.
Nine Lives. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think. That's the one you told me about
Yeah.
way back when. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that was the one you were using for a course, right?
No,
Oh, okay.
that was what's her name? I don't remember the name of the book. Was it Ninth House? Something House.
Oh, Ninth House. Yeah, because I've
Ninth
read
House. That
that.
was the one for the course. Yeah, but
Right.
this is
Right.
just I read this on my own. This
Okay.
was a lot like and then there were none.
Okay. Okay. I actually had somebody come in and ask for that book yesterday.
So good. So good.
So a decent reading, a book every 2 weeks or so. That's not bad. I'm not going to complain about that. In terms of health objective, I was a total failure on all levels: exercise, eating, and weight. I'm coming into 2025 at 228 pounds, which is really a personal high for me. I do not need to be at this weight. And if I continue to be at this weight or creep up anymore, I'm going to end up being diabetic. So something really has got to get done in 2025. And unfortunately, it involves a lot of things that I don't like doing, which is watching what I eat and
Yes.
exercise.
Eating healthy and exercising. That stuff
Yeah,
sucks.
I do like exercising. It's just so hard to find the time right now. But I'm just going to have to bite the bullet and end up doing it after work probably, or getting up at like 5:30 in the morning and go do it.
I made a hash brown, cheesy hash brown casserole yesterday. put it on Snapchat, and then I went over to my mom and dad's in the evening to get my dog, and my mom's like, "How'd your casserole turn out?" And I was like, "Good." And she goes, "Do you have vegetables?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Now, I've got a lot of things going on in the garden. I'm going to talk a little bit about gardening
Mm.
here, but this year coming up here, there's going to be a lot more gardening going on. In fact, right now over there in the other room, I have a plant stand set up with a bunch of fluorescent lights on it, and I'm growing out. Let's see, what would it be? It would be 8, 60. I've got 150 kale plants
Wow.
uh, growing out there now, so I'm going to have a lot of kale this spring for sure. And I've got lettuce and spinach and potatoes probably potentially out there to pick when the kids come in a few days. So that'll be so the vegetables generally are a problem. I kind of like vegetables, but my wife, who is not a major cook, and when she does cook, her idea of cooking is casseroles, like you.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's easy.
it's hard to get into the vegetables.
Mm.
The other major personal non-writing goal I had was, as mentioned, gardening related. And on that front, I'm going to claim unmitigated success. In fact, that was probably my biggest success story of 2024 was the amount of gardening I got done, even considering how much time I was putting into the job search and all the time I put in at work recently. The year started off great. I had a great potato, pea, and pumpkin harvest. Oddly enough, here in Louisiana, it gets so hot down in the summer that our pumpkins ripen in July, as opposed to the north where it's always in the fall that you're picking pumpkins. But I had a great pumpkin harvest given the small number of plants I put out. We baked those, cooked them, and froze it to make pumpkin pies during the year. It continued through summer. We had a really good blueberry crop out front. I got a bunch of blueberry bushes out front. Probably got about 3 or 4 gallons worth of blueberries out
Wow.
of a little patch that's about 6 feet by 10 feet, something like that. We had good cucumbers, melons, and string beans. Uh, right now, as I mentioned, I've got early potatoes growing out there. I've got the lettuce, spinach, kale, and some early spring peas I'm going to be putting in tomorrow that I sprouted over the holidays while I was gone. Um, I really haven't been into the back 40 in a while. In fact, I almost went back today because I had to go let the chickens out, which is what my wife usually does after I go to work. In the back of the backyard is where we have our fruit trees planted since late last summer. I was going to go check and see if they're starting to bud out or not yet. I did look through our greenhouse. We do have a greenhouse back there. I looked through it to the other side where they're planted, and I could see that my plum trees still have this year's leaves on them. So they haven't even dropped their leaves yet. But I suspect we haven't had a cold enough snap for them to drop their leaves. I think the coldest we got one morning, it was 30, maybe 31 here. We had some pretty heavy frost, but other than that, it's been 35, 40 and above. We may not
Maybe
have a winter.
maybe next week. It's gonna be the teens up here next week. Maybe next
Well, we
week.
might get something then, but yeah,
Yeah.
right now it's looking like we might not have much of a winter at all. As far as landscaping we were thinking about doing is concerned, we didn't do very much, although I did start, as I mentioned, that fence rebuilding project
Mm.
around the perimeter of our property. I probably got about half done and probably would have finished it if before the holidays if I hadn't lost more than a month of my free time, non-library time, working on my wife's car because it had to be inspected and it was not going to pass the way it was. So I had to do a lot of repair work. Uh, but that's fun. I kind of like working on cars. Like I grew up working on cars. I don't know if I ever mentioned to you, but the first thing I did in terms of before I could even drive, or maybe right after I started driving, my dad bought us, me and my brother bought us an old junky Duster,
Mm.
Plymouth Duster, and we tore it all down and put it all back together and
Oh.
painted it and everything. And had a whole box of parts left over after I did that,
It's
which
always nice
was
to have extra parts.
well, bolts and
Yeah.
brackets and stuff like that. That
Yeah.
who knows where they're supposed to go. That was a fun project. I enjoyed that car a lot. It was like maybe 2 weeks after I'd gone away to college. My brother, who's younger than me, wrapped it around a telephone pole. So it
Oh.
was, yeah, it was not a fun time. Well, I mean, I was pretty magnanimous about it, but yeah, I was a little bit upset at the time. In terms of this fence project, to be fair, that wasn't really even on the 2024 bingo card until storm blew, part of a
Mm.
fence down that we had. So I don't really feel bad about not completing it, but we're gonna get after that in 2025. See if we can get that done.
So I had a couple of non writing goals myself, and they were Kind of silly, but they were kind of fun. So number one was stay single digit handicap in the golf league and end the year as a 7 or lower, which I did. I ended the year as a 7, which is the lowest I've ever been in that league. Made me very happy. Continue to improve off the tee and get better with my second shot. I also did that. That was also I have a fail in here because my overall index went up in my golf. My golf index, what determines your handicap, went up, but that's because I really started working on my driver. Hurt me early, and by the end of the year, I was playing about as well as I ever have, hitting it straighter and longer. And I'm really excited for next year to start. Break 80 at least once. That was a fail. I didn't do that. I didn't even get close this year. I think last year I had a couple of 80. I think an 81 and a couple of 82s. This year I don't think I had anything lower than like 84, 85. Hole in one, nope. That will be on my goal list forever until I actually do it. So hole in one, sadly no. And then I had a couple of around the house projects. Get a door put on my golf simulator, which did not happen. Get at least 3 of the 4 walls insulated and drywall. Geez, I forgot that I even did that. No, that didn't happen. I have some plans for my simulator. I have it on the list out front. I've opened it up, getting it ready to open up this year over the next few days, so I can start using it over the next couple months before it gets warm out, or before the summer comes. And then get my basement steps fixed. I did not do that, and I really need to do that. Throughout the year, I've got people coming downstairs to check the furnace and put in my electric for my car and all that stuff. And I have to say, when you get down to the landing, step right there, or everything falls apart. And it's like I just really need to get that done. So that'll be on my list for this year too. Whether I get it done or not, I don't know. And then lastly is the financial stuff. I'm doing the Dave Ramsey plan, which is there's I think there's seven steps in his plan. I don't care about step 7 or step 5. So coming into the year, I was still working on my emergency fund, and I need to complete that. That's step 3, which I did. And then then I went to step 4, which was up my 401k to 15%, which I did. And then I skipped step 5 and I went to step 6, which is start paying off my house. And the number that I gave was I wanted to be below 50,000. I didn't care. I didn't care what the number ended up being. I just wanted to be 49,999.99 or below is what I was looking at. When I started the year, the balance was 67,000, and I made it through the year paying it down. And I made a payment on Sunday, and that payment came out this morning. And as of right now, the balance is 49,653. So right. That was a success. Now the funny thing about all of that, and I'll get into this more tomorrow, is as 2025 starts, I'm actually starting over at step 2 for a number of reasons, and we'll talk more about why that is. Okay. But I'm very excited that I got my house down into the 40s. I'm a little bit disappointed that now I have to pay off a car. I'm not disappointed I bought the car. I love the car, but now I have to stop doing that for the next 8 or 9 months and pay off the car. And then once that's done, I can go back to the house. So, right. But it really was cool to see that balance hit a 4 this morning when I looked. So that was a success. That was a really good way to end it. My year was a really good success hit. So, and that's it. Those are my goals, and I think we made it through yours. Did you have anything else?
No, not really, except that all things considered, it was a good year. I ended up making it through. When you get to be my age, you're never sure you're going to make it to the end of the year. So.
Yeah, don't make your what'd you call it? Your word of the day, which was, what was it? Finish. Yeah, don't make that stay alive, or
That's
don't
right.
get in a car crash, things like that.
Right.
Let's not do that. So.
Well, I don't know. Now I'm thinking about it. We could have "Stay Alive" as my words of the year, and have the Bee Gees as my soundtrack.
I would actually do "Stay Alive," but I would call it one of my favorite songs from Hamilton. So either way,
okay.
we're doing music here. I like that.
Yeah.
So all right, I think that's it. Tomorrow, so right around 24 hours from now. Do you know what time tomorrow is good for you? I'm good.
We can do it earlier. I'll ping you when I actually get something put together.
I'll be home. And so we just did the 2024 goals. Tomorrow we're going to do our 2025 goals. Get that out there for everyone. I can just give a little bit of a tease on mine and say it's significantly different than it was in 2024. Now that, not significantly, but pretty different, a lot different than it was in 2024. Now that I'm where I'm at with all these first drafts written. So I'm kind of looking forward to going through this.
Yeah, mine will definitely be different, much different from what I had planned in 2024. But still, I hope to have quite a few writing components in there.
All right, everyone, that's going to be the podcast for tonight. The very special episode, like they did in the 80s for TV. I always love those. And tomorrow we'll have a part 2 of the very special episode where we talk about 25 goals. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll talk to you next time.
Yep. Take care, everybody.